You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of ZenTech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from ZenTech Consultants. I am Jim Coppinger, and with me as always is my super salesman partner, let's face it, the fun half of this partnership, Mr. Rocco Parisi.
Well, I'm glad you admitted it.
Yeah, you absolutely are. Let's face it, I'm an old grumpy man.
I'm glad you admitted it. And this is being recorded for quality assurance purposes.
I just say these things to make you feel better about yourself. You know, that's all I can do.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's just mean, people. He's mean.
Listen, I throw you a bone now and again, you know? That's why you don't feel so sad having to bask in the glory that is me. I get it. I know how it goes. You know, it's tough.
Boy.
It's tough. All right, so what is our topic today, Rock? Today we're talking about non-CAD files and how to control them. So that's our topic, right? So, in the CAD and the design world, we don't just deal with CAD files. I mean, yeah, sure, DWG and RVT file types, right? They're a huge part of the design process. I mean, without drawing, there's no project, right? But they're not the only files that we need to work with. Bids, specifications, engineering reports, cut sheets, spec sheets, soils reports. There are a million other types of documents that are just as necessary to the design build process as the construction documents. Now to be fair, as a veteran CAD geek and a designer, I've always been, just arrogant enough to think that, my files are the only really important ones on the project.
Of course they are.
Well, of course they're mine.
They were.
They were, right. Right, nowadays I have to be a little bit more open, because I have to deal with, people who aren't like me. So, you think that yours are the only important ones on the project, but the truth is that, without those other types of documents, right, there really isn't any project to begin with. Right? A design build project, it really begins with, letters of intent and, requests to bid and maybe even some introduction letters. Right? There are marketing, purchasing, presentations, budgets, accounting, and a lot more types of documentation that go into a job, right? Before, even before the first discussion with an actual architect or engineer ever happens, right? And those other documents never go away either. In reality, there are probably like 10 times as many non-CAD files that are related to your project as there are construction drawings. All right, and that's why today we wanted to talk a little bit about, best practices and considerations on, how to control your non-CAD files in a design and build project. All right, so Rocco, is this a topic that you talk about with our clients a lot? I mean, is there any real concern out there over managing the files that aren't directly CAD related?
It doesn't come up every day, but it certainly does come up. I mean, there's a ton of files that are associated with this whole process, right? I mean, and a ton of folks that are involved, both from an interior and an exterior standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely true. Okay, all right. So there's no way around it then, right? We have to control a whole lot of other file types beyond just our drawing files. And in case, you're one of those guys like me, you're arrogant enough to be like, hey, I'm all about the CAD stuff. This doesn't concern me. Well, I'm here to tell you that it actually does. And it's particularly true if you're a CAD manager, or if, you want to be one day. The key word in that term isn't CAD, it's manager. All right, you're the manager. You're responsible for the collection, distribution, security, and control of all the related and support documentation for your projects in exactly the same way you're responsible for those things in your drawing files. Let's face it, right? You can't get approvals without reports, and you can't get materials without first doing specifications, and you can't build without getting permits and approvals and all that stuff. So None of these documents are inherently CAD based, but your job isn't going anywhere without having all of those organized, saved, and, as Rocco pointed out, made accessible to everyone who's working on your job, both internally and externally. Right? And that means that you need to find ways to integrate the construction documents, all right, and what I call, and I'll refer to here for today's discussion, the support documentation, kind of into a single, organized, and accessible location, right? Now, here's the thing, right? So one of the things that always frustrated me in my design career is, that there's this overwhelming belief out there, and it's really particular to the engineering and architectural field, and it's that, CAD and support files are the properties of different groups. Okay, CAD folks only get control and access to drawing files. That's it. That's all they need to see. And management staff and engineers and architects, they get access to the support stuff. And to my mind, that's always been wrong. All right, and I think it presents a lot of additional work and both potential technical and communication problems on a project when you approach things that way. So, Rocco, in terms of file storage and hosting, how are our clients handling this? I mean, are they separating do we find that they're separating the CAD and the support files, or are they actively looking for ways to integrate, all their file storage and file sharing into one venue?
I think folks are open to hearing definitely how others within the industry are doing it, but it's very fragmented. Everybody's working in different ways. That's definitely what I see. Okay. What about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like I said, I still, talking to people, when we start dealing with folks, I still get a lot of that conversation of, I don't want my CAD guys, seeing this, and I want to make sure that, only my manager can see that. All right. So there's still a lot of that data splitting, all right, between different groups and who can access what. So let me point out why I find, splitting data that way to be an issue. First off, hey, I absolutely understand, the concept that there are private files, right? Particularly those, related to cost that management doesn't always want their design staff to see. And the idea behind that seems to be that, the staff should never know how much you're making on a project. I don't know, because maybe then they might want raises or something like that. I don't know. But look, I have been on both sides of the fence, right? As the designer and the manager, right? I've done both sides of this. And let me tell you, folks, the best thing that you can do is rip that fence down, all right? I think this concept of secrecy in your billing and in what the projects cost, I think it causes you far more issues than it resolves. Here's what I think, right? Because they're kept from the numbers. Your CAD and your design staff, they always believe, right? You have this conversation. They always believe that the company's making crazy amounts of profit on every single job, and they're keeping it for themselves, right? So that all of the engineers and the managers are making crazy amounts of money, and that's why all the CAD people are underpaid and overworked. And that's not true, right? The truth is that most design firms, now Rocco, we talk with folks a lot now, on the management end, right? We fully realize that most design firms, they're operating on a 4% to a 6% margin on any given project, right? That makes them one of the least profitable industries out there in terms of percentage of profit on each job, right? I mean, that's just barely above like grocery stores. It is crazy low, right? And I really think that if you let your design staff see those numbers, they see what you're getting on projects and know how very tight the budgets are, I really do believe they're much more likely to push harder and keep budgets and timelines in mind, right? When they realize what the budgets are, when they look at it and say, okay, we're making, X amount of dollars on this job and you got to pay 15 people to finish it. Oh, okay, boy, you ain't making much more than I am, and I think that there's another side to that coin too, right? So that's just kind of a general concept I want to throw out there today.
And I agree with you, by the way, on that point. I mean, I've seen it, time and time again where let's say workers, to not specify specific titles, but because it's such a general area, but where workers get lost in the sauce. You could spend hours upon hours just focusing on one area and not realizing that, hey, there's money that's being that's literally pouring out of this project.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true, right? It's the old, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. You become monofocus and you don't see the large scope. And I think sharing that information helps to ease that. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. I also think, the other side of this coin is that, every time that you force your people into going to separate locations, right, or having to ask permission to access files, let's face it, you're slowing down the project, right? And in any business, now, time is money, but it's particularly true when you're operating on 4 and 5% margins, right? Time is the only way you're going to make a profit here. And it's not just the time involved, but you're also increasing the chances that your people are working on out of date information. Let me tell you why that's an issue. I can't even begin to tell you how many times in my career I have seen people working off of, copies of specs, copies of bids, copies of reports that they just took and they got through an email and just dropped it on their desktop, right? Because they can't be bothered to go to a server that they don't normally go to and browse through 9 folders and 30 subfolders to find the file or to ask permission because this isn't something they've been given general access to. Right? To do that every time they need a file, they're not going to do it. All right? So they just take it, get it once, drop it on their desktop, and work off of that. Well, of course, the one that they have on their desktop is 3 months old, and it's been revised, 7 times since they saved it. But we're all sure that it's cool that they're getting their the bids are done with that 3-month-old version, right? That's not a problem, right? That's all good. But listen, all right, you know what? That's enough lecturing. I'm not going to lecture people about how to do things, right? So I think this is a great point. Let's take a break, right, to hear from today's sponsor. And when we come back, right, we'll talk about some of the best practices for sharing support files for a design project. All right, so we will be back in just 1 minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's episode of the Cattle Call Podcast is brought to you by ZenTech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at ZenTech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right, CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing, implementing, and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from ZenTech Consultants. You're listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from ZenTech Consultants. All right, so today, all right, we've been talking about the best methods for hosting and sharing your non-CAD related files. But before we get back into that topic, right, and how-tos, let's take a look at a few of the numbers. Right, you know me, I like the maths, on why this is such an important topic, right? So based on info that I garnered off of Salesforce, McKinsey, and the New York Times, throw some numbers at you here, Rocco. All right, so first, 86% of executives cite poor collaboration and file sharing as the chief cause of workplace failures. Right? 97% of employees and executives both believe that lack of team alignment negatively impacts project outcomes. Right? As most everybody's saying, if we don't know where things are and we ain't working together, it's going to have a real negative impact. Now, here these next two just blow my mind. 99.1% of employees think it's important for a company to honestly share pricing and income data in order to improve project outcome. Okay? Less than 50% of those same employees say that their companies actually share project pricing data with them.
Uh-huh.
A big, big difference, right? Companies that share files and communicate effectively with employees are 4.5 times more likely to retain their best employees. Right? Big impact if you're not being honest and straightforward with your folks. Okay, so let's talk about some of the technical stuff then. Studies show that improved file sharing and collaboration increases project profitability 20 to 25%. That's a big impact when you're running on tight margins. Okay, here, 92% of people report losing project critical files via email at some point over the last year. Okay, 83% report having to recreate documents regularly, stressing that word here, all right, that were lost or deleted off their server. Okay?
Wow.
And this one, right? This number always boggles my mind. 21% to 45% of your design staff's time every day is spent searching for documentation, finding the files they need to work on. Almost half of their time can be spent doing nothing but that. All right, and like I said, I think that's a lot of support for the idea of openly sharing your files in a consistent and easily accessible location. And to me, that means sharing them all in the same place. Okay, so Rocco, let me ask you this, right? What are folks in the design world doing right now to address these issues? All right, do they even realize the impact that document sharing and control of these files can have on their bottom line?
I think they're starting to realize it even more now that with the pandemic going on and how important organization and working in a cloud-based structure really is. Because a lot of people are just used to yelling over the wall, "Hey, Marcia, where's this file?" Or,
Why is it Marcia? Marcia. Sorry, I had to throw my Brady Bunch reference in. You can't bring up Marcia without me doing that. It's just the way it is. No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you really start to see the benefits and the problems that occur when you don't have this kind of a structure in place, when you get into an environment like we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
So, the question left to address then, right, for today's conversation is the how of it all. How do you structure your projects in a reliable, easily accessible, secure manner? And here's the thing, right? That's not a simple answer. There's no one answer there, right? And because here at ZenSec, we do a lot of extensive training on that topic, right, in our CAD management and control classes, and we do a lot of consulting work, right, helping our clients find the specific tools and processes that work best for them, right? The truth is, I think that there's really no single answer here, all right? We all do different things. We have different types of work, right, and different processes, and we do everything in different ways, right? The answer is really one that is customized to your company's specific needs, all right? So I know that's a little vague, right, but it is the truth of it. There is not a one-size-fits-all answer for this, right? So, having said that, though, right, there are a few basic document management techniques, right, that are needed for all of us, right? So for starters, right, I think, keeping all your project-related documents in one location, right? You should never have your drawings on one server and your engineering, bidding, management files on another. They should all be located under one single project folder, right? Now, if you don't believe what we talked about here today about sharing all your data and your pricing and everything with your workers, that's fine, right? Everybody has different opinions. So if you still want to restrict access to certain files and certain folders, hey, that's okay, all right? But if you're going to do it from that one location via permission controls. Don't store them in different locations. The other common recommendation that I always make is that all of your projects should be hosted in the cloud. And yes, I mean all, without exceptions. Everything in this modern day and age needs to be cloud-based hosting, right? the modern design build world, it involves dozens of firms and specialists and consultants all collaborating and working together on any given project, right? And if they have to depend on emailing files, or if each specialist and each engineer and consultant is keeping their own local copies of files, right? You're going to have major time issues and a whole lot of lost revenue. It's just the way it is, right? So Rocco, let's talk a little bit about software here. What are the big software systems that we recommend for our clients to address these needs, right? Who are the big players in the design, build, document management world?
Yeah, well, there's definitely lots of them out there. I mean, we do quite a bit with the Microsoft product line, right? I mean, a lot of people are already working with Office 365, so we do a lot with Teams and SharePoint Online. So those can certainly be one of them. We do a lot with Bluebeam Studio, right? Particularly on the construction side. Bluebeam Studio is a very simple product to work with, and you get it free as part of your Bluebeam license. On more on the architecture engineering side, you see tools like BIM 360 used. I'd say mostly on the manufacturing side, I see Vault, Autodesk Vault used a lot. Yeah,
that's still really big with folks who are dealing in the inventor space. Yeah.
But and then you have very small firms that are kind of at some level trying to use a Google Drive or OneDrive. I'm not sure that we would really recommend those type solutions. I mean, what do you think about those?
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue that most of those things, like Dropbox and Google Drive, I think people tend to use those as like temporary storage locations as a way to, hey, I want to show you a file, so I just take a copy of the one off my server or off my local machine. I drop it there for you to access, and then you copy it to your system. And I think that's how most people use those, and it is absolutely not what I would recommend. That's, again, we're back to having multiple copies of the same file in 6 different offices, each one out of date and out of sync, and I think that's just a nightmare waiting to happen. Yeah, so no, I definitely would not recommend that from a tech standpoint. So, all right, cool. So like I said, I realize, as Rocco pointed out, right, certain types of work, like BIM models, can have very specific file hosting needs. Okay, when you're doing advanced design processes with like a shared central BIM or Revit model, there are certain hosting services and processes that you will need to work in. Okay, and those are good. All right, they're designed for very specific needs. I think what I'm saying here is that you also need to push your support files into that same structure. All right. Listen, for most of us, putting, our DWG files, our Word documents, our PDFs, spreadsheets, all on the same cloud hosting site, that's all we need, right? We're working just basic, design. It's fine, right? We've talked before that most of us still work very heavily in the 2D world, and things like XREFs and so on, modern cloud structures, host those and share those with no problems. Okay, when you get into more of an advanced 3D design tool like Revit or Inventor, where you really do need to use a system like BIM 360, Vault, or some other proprietary tool, I think it's really worth it for your company to spend the extra money and the effort to get all your people access to and training on whatever that particular hosting service is. The key to profitability, I think, lies in consistency. Right? And all too often I hear people say that, they don't want to, force my people to use another tool. Right? And I do get that. And we've talked many times before on this podcast about reducing the number of software systems you have and simplifying people's workflows. But here's the thing, right? If using that one new tool lets you eliminate 2 others and 30 steps out of your daily workflow, right? Then, yeah, you made an investment, but that's going to make you more money. And it'll also help eliminate a few potential lawsuits when you're working off of incorrect and out-of-date data. Then I suggest that it's time to tell your folks to learn some new processes. That's a key. New is not always bad. Okay, so I think that's kind of that covers most of what I wanted to say today, right? And I think that this might be a good place for us to wind up. Unless Rocco, you got anything you want to add to this conversation before we close it out for today?
Listen to Jim.
Wow, see, now that's recorded and set for posterity. I'm just going to take that little clip out and I'm going to play it every time you argue with me, or you're going to hear yourself going, "Listen to Jim," and that'll end the arguments. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So with that perfect ending to the day, I want to thank you all for listening. We will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.